Hey everyone, my name is Sean. Welcome to another episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist Link Evolution Online Ranked. In today's episode, I'm going to be playing one of my most favourite decks in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! The ORCUST archetype. ORCUST is an archetype which I've been playing for almost a year in real life, and I've seen quite a bit of success with it. I've managed to top 2 regionals in the United Kingdom with this deck, and I've also taken this to the European Championships last year, and probably would have done so this year if they weren't cancelled, unfortunately, due to COVID-19. ORCUST is a very balanced archetype. From playing on Legacy of the Duelists in the past and also playing in real life, I decided that I really actually like to have a deck which can necessarily always compete against any deck it plays against. It's quite a balanced deck, and so there isn't ever really a time when I'm playing this deck that I feel that I'm against a matchup where I just honestly can't win at all. We have the tools here, albeit it's not the strongest deck anymore, but we do have the tools to kind of deal with many different situations. And so let's get into some of the strategy here and describe what we're doing. The first thing which I did just a moment ago is I used the card Orchestrated Return to discard one ORCUST or World Legacy card, which was ORCUST Nightmare, and draw 2 more cards. So this deck has its own draw power engines, which is also really nice. Then I used the effect of Magician's Souls to send Apprentice Illusion Magician to the graveyard and special summon it to the field. I've now normal summoned Armageddon Knight to send a Dark Monster from my deck to my graveyard. The ORCUST game plan is as follows. You want to get Orchestrated Nightmare to the grave in order to use this effect to try and get another ORCUST monster on board through special summoning. By doing so, we can then use those materials to link summon, and then that will allow us to access our deck and get more resources from it. So what I've done there is I've used ORCUST Symbol Skeleton effect from the graveyard to special summon ORCUST Nightmare onto the field. ORCUST Symbol Skeleton has a Monster Reborn style effect for ORCUST monsters, so you banish it from the graveyard and you can special summon a monster from your graveyard. So it's a really good form of recursion. Now I've used Armageddon Knight and also ORCUST Nightmare to link summon into Galatea. Galatea is now going to allow me to target one of my banished machine type monsters, return it to my deck, and then set any ORCUST spell or trap card from my deck directly to my field. And as you saw, I had 3 different options there. The card which I chose was Orchestrated Babble, and I'll tell you a bit more about what this does when it becomes a bit more relevant. Now, what's also great about ORCUST is that we can use our materials more to kind of send as many resources to the graveyard that we want to use later on. So I'm going to use ORCUST Nightmare's effect now, and ORCUST Nightmare works like a Foolish Burial, where it can send any Dark Machine from my deck to the graveyard and increase a monster's attack by the level of the monster it sends. So Galatea now has got an 800 attack boost because it sent World 1 to the graveyard until the end of the turn. World 1's effect from the graveyard is now going to be able to banish itself to special summon back the ORCUST Nightmare to the field. So now I've got 4 monsters on the board. Now we're going to use Galatea as a resource to perform an XC summon. This is a very special effect unique to Dingersu, the ORCUST of the Evening Star, where we can use a Link monster as its material to perform an XC summon. Dingersu is the boss monster of this deck, and it's a really good powerful one because it's got some really great effects. The effect I'm going to use right now is it's going to allow me to attach one of my banished machine type monsters and equip it to it as a material for its own effects later on. Dingersu has also 2 other effects, but I'll tell you about what they do when they become relevant. So we've got Dingersu on the board along with ORCUST Nightmare and Magician's Souls. Now we want to use our ORCUST Nightmare and Magician's Souls to go into a Link 2, and we're going to go and summon IP Masquerader. IP Masquerader is a very versatile Link 2 card. It's probably the best Link 2 card in the game, or if not one of the best Link monsters in the game period, because she allows you to perform a Link summon during your opponent's turn. I said this in the last episode, but if you know Formula Synchron, then her effect is quite like that, where Formula Synchron performs a Synchron summon, she can perform a Link summon during your turn. We then set round 1 card and we pass to our opponent. Now here comes another effect of Dingersu which is going to be a bit relevant. Fredpool has used the card Galaxy Cyclone, which is going to destroy a set spell trap card on my field. Dingersu's effect is that it allows me to protect any of my cards from being destroyed by attaching a material from it. So because it can attach materials to itself, it can then provide a bit of protection for our board from destruction style effects. My opponent now uses the effect of Teddy Spirit, I'm going to say this wrong, I believe it's Shitana, to summon itself to the field. Teddies are actually a very interesting archetype to me. I think they are really well designed, and they just need a little bit more ingenuity in order to really kind of make them a very strong deck. At my local scene, I do have a friend who actually plays Teddies, and he's been able to beat me with ORCUST before, playing against my ORCUST set before, so this can be a bit of an even matchup. Teddies all have the effects of, if there is a non-effect monster on your field, face-up non-effect monster on your field, you can special summon this card. So, by summoning into their Link 1, Monk of the Teddy, it has no effects. He's able to special summon another monster, and now he's going to link that away for another copy of Monk of the Teddy, so that he has no effect monsters on his field. The bonus thing about Teddy monsters is that they also have graveyard style effects, and I'll get to that in a moment. Now he's going to special summon Teddy Spirit Vishuda. Vishuda's got a very powerful graveyard effect, but first it's going to just summon itself to the field. And it's not a small monster, it's quite beefy, it's got a big amount of defense. And Vishuda was actually a monster which players started to play in ORCUST for a little while, because it was an easy way to summon a monster to the field in your first turn, and then all you have to do is summon an ORCUST monster and you've got Galatea, so I'm quite familiar. Plus it's dark also, which bears some synergy with the ORCUST archetype. Fredpool is now going to perform a Link 2 summon. He is going to link away his Vishuda and one of his Monk of the Teddies to summon out Shaman of the Teddy. Shaman of the Teddy is not a normal monster, it does have an effect, and its effect is that it is able to discard one card from the opponent's hand to special summon a Teddy monster from their graveyard, a monster reborn style of effect, if you will. Now, at this point, his board is starting to get a little bit dangerous, and I actually don't really want to deal with the Link 3 Teddy monster. I want to kind of stop him from getting that. Fredpool decides to activate the effect of Teddy Spirit Vishuda. All Teddy monsters have the effect of, if you control a non-effect monster on your field, you can banish this card from the graveyard, and then they have a variety of different effects. Vishuda's effect is that it can return a monster on your opponent's side of the field back to your hand, so he wants to return my Dingersu back to the extra deck, which is actually a really smart thing to do. Fortunately, I have IP Masquerader on my board, so IP Masquerader, I'm going to chain her effect in order to perform a Link summon. IP Masquerader is going to use herself as a Link 2, and Dingersu as a Link 1, and we're going to summon the Link 3 monster, Nightmare Unicorn. Nightmare Unicorn has a great effect, but because it was summoned through IP Masquerader, it also cannot be destroyed by card effects while it is face up on the field, so it's got a bit of extra protection. Nightmare Unicorn's on summon effect triggers, and I have to discard one card, and I can shuffle one card on my opponent's field back into their deck. So I'm going to get rid of that Link 2, forcing him to try and Link climb again and use more resources to kind of get to where he wants to be right now. My opponent now uses the effect of Teddy Spirit Adhara's graveyard effect, and that is you can add one of your banished Teddy monsters and add it to your hand. Unfortunately, all the Teddy monsters are one hard once per turn, so he won't be able to summon Vishuda again, but it's still a nice way to recur your resources. Teddy Spirit Nahata now is going to special summon in the field, and now he's going to use both his other monk and Nahata to bring back Shaman of the Teddy. And like I said to you before, she does have an effect where she is able to summon a monster from the graveyard, which will then allow him to be able to Link climb into a Teddy Link 3, which is their big boss monster of their archetype. So Fredpool is going to go ahead and try and do that. He discards Vishuda in order to target Monk of the Teddy by getting a non-effect monster on the field, but I'm going to respond with Forbidden Chalice. Forbidden Chalice is an old school card, but if you don't know what it does, it's a quick play spell that allows you to increase a target monster's attack by 400, but you get to negate its effects. This is a card which I've been using quite a lot recently to deal with monsters such as Abyss Dweller and Shadow Winder, to negate their effects before my opponent can really try to stop me from making a play. My opponent now special summons out his last monster, I forgot the name of the water type, but in response I'm now going to use ORCUST Nightmare's effect, and ORCUST Nightmare's effect is going to send Symbol Skeleton to the graveyard. Symbol Skeleton's graveyard effect is now going to activate, and this is a good time for me to now tell you what Orchestrated Babble does. All of the ORCUST monsters are Link Speed 1 effects, but if you have Orchestrated Babble on the field, it turns them all into quick effects, which is a very powerful card indeed. So what this means is I can actually use all my ORCUST cards in the graveyard during my opponent's turn, as if though it was my own turn as well. And by doing so, I've decided to summon out Dingersu, and I use Dingersu's final effect, which is I can send any card on the field to the graveyard. The reason why ORCUST is such a versatile archetype is because of Dingersu's send ability. Dingersu's ability to send a card to the graveyard is not a targeted effect, and doesn't activate or do any destruction, so it's a very versatile card and for dealing with any kind of threat on the board. My opponent attacks my Monk of the Teddy, and he uses the card effect of his Teddy Spirit Nahata to reduce my Nightmare Unicorn's attack by 1500, forcing both of his monsters to crash. Nahata then allows him to special summon back a Monk of the Teddy, and he then destroys my Dingersu from the field, kind of bringing us both down to a very low resource management game. Now, I'm still in a very favourable position here. I've got a powerhouse card, that being Monster Reborn, and I've just drawn into one of my other favourite cards, Instant Fusion. Both of these cards are going to really help me to recur my resources and rebuild my board quite easily. But then again, even without these two cards, I still have ORCUST cards in the graveyard which can do the job just as well. So I play Instant Fusion to pay 1000 life points, and I special summon out Thousand Eyes Restrict. Thousand Eyes Restrict effect is going to trigger, and it's going to allow me to equip Monk of the Teddy to it as an equip spell card. And eventually I'm going to get rid of my Thousand Eyes Restrict, and that will get rid of his monster along with it. Now I use the effect of Well Legacy World 1 to special summon back ORCUST Nightmare, and we're going to go for a Link 2 summon, and we're going to link away both Thousand Eyes Restrict and ORCUST Nightmare, but it seems like I've changed my mind first. First I'm going to go for something else. Really any effect I could do, but I guess I'm going to go for Dingersu. I could have gone for many options there. I just saw my Armageddon Knight in the graveyard. Armageddon Knight would have been a really good option because it would have given me a body and then a card to send to the graveyard in order to do more effects. But I've decided I'm going to go for Dingersu, and Dingersu is going to allow me to attach back one of my banished machine monsters, and so we're going to do the loop again, and we're going to get Symbol Skeleton into my hand. And by now, hopefully, through my explanation, you can kind of see the power of ORCUST and its ability to recur resources over and over again. Now we're going to perform a Link 2 to summon out Galatea one more time, and Galatea is going to come to the field. Galatea is now going to allow me to return a copy of World Legacy World 1 from my banished pile back into my deck in order to set another one of my ORCUST cards. And I can do this once per turn as long as I have cards in return from my banished pile. Remember, this is also an optional effect. You can just choose to return the card and not actually set a card if you don't want to. But I'm going to try and set Orchestrated Return. Bit surprised that I set Orchestrated Return, and to be honest with you, normally I would have gone for my Orchestrated Crescendo. Crescendo is the counter trap for the ORCUST archetype, and it has the ability to negate any spell, monster, or trap effect, and then also banish that card. And to be honest, I think that would have been a smarter play to do rather than get returned. But at this point, I'm probably so confident in my ability to win this game that I'm not actually too worried about what's going to happen. So we're going to use Orchestrated Return to get rid of Galatea and send it to the graveyard to draw 2 cards. And I've drawn into one of the best normal summons for this deck, Scrap Recycler. Scrap Recycler, its on-summon effect is going to activate, and that lets me send any machine card from my deck to the graveyard. And here we go again, just activating the loop, sending whatever resource I want to use later on or during my opponent's next turn. ORCUST Nightmare is always a good solid bet to do so, so ORCUST Nightmare is going to go to the grave. And before we end my turn, I'm going to use one of my ORCUST Nightmares and keep the other one for later on, increase the attack of Scrap Recycler, and now I'm going to send to the graveyard probably the World Legacy World 1 because I've got the most copies of that in my deck, and I've got Symbol Skeleton, I believe, attached to Dingersu right now. Could also go for Gizmek Orochi on the right there. Really, honestly, at this point, it doesn't really matter too much. Oh, we go for Symbol Skeleton, that's fine. So Symbol Skeleton is in the grave along with ORCUST Nightmare, and yeah, we can use Symbol Skeleton right now. Symbol Skeleton is going to bring back a copy of Galatea, which means I can use her effect during my opponent's turn. And yeah, I think you guys kind of get the point at this point. This is why ORCUST is so powerful. It can just constantly loop its resources from graveyard to banished pile to deck over and over again. As long as you're smart and you manage to route your resources and you find multiple ways of sending cards to your graveyard, it's a deck which I really love playing, and yeah, it's a very powerful strategy. I think also for the legacy of the Duelist environment, where you only have single duels in ranked as opposed to doing proper matches, I think it's a very good option for that, because like I said, you have the removal in form of the Gesu, which can remove any card on the field basically and send it to the graveyard, so it can deal with any situation that you might wildly come up with. And there's a lot of variety definitely in Legacy of the Duelist. Threadpool draws into Magma Dragon. This card, when it is special summon, you can target one worm type monster in your graveyard and special summon it. I've never actually seen a Teddy player use that card before, so I'm a bit surprised. Now he's going to attack my Scrap Recycler with it, and we're going to have a little bit of fun here. What we're going to do is we're going to use ORCUST Nightmare's effect in the graveyard, and we're going to banish itself and send a Dark Machine type monster from my deck to the graveyard. Now, let's see if we remember what ORCUST Nightmare's effect is. I sent to the graveyard Gizmek Orochi. That's going to increase my monster's attack by 800, and therefore my monster now has a stronger attack than his, and it's going to destroy his card. So that's going to really empty his field. There really isn't a lot here that Threadpool can do. One of the big downsides compared, unlike ORCUST with Teddy monsters, is you must have a non-effect monster on the field to use their graveyard effects. And there we go. That's going to be the end of the game there. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video, watch me play one of my favourite decks. If you would like to see me play a little bit more ORCUST, do let me know, or if you would like to see a deck profile, let me know as well. Feel free to add me on PSN at StandbyMain. Do leave a message when you do so though, because I do get some really weird people adding me to PSN sometimes. And thank you for tuning into this video, and I hope you'll tune into the next. Remember to subscribe and like, share, all that good stuff, and I'll see you soon. Take care.